All right, Vikings Vent Line. Happy Sunday to you. Declan Goff here to take another edition of Vikings Vent Line. Of course, we do the show during the regular season with Mackie, Judd, and myself. But during the off season, I still like to get into this and talk about some Viking stuff with other fans. So if you're interested too, by the way, in coming in on an episode of Vikings Vent Line, we got like 7-8 weeks before the regular season opens. So there's still plenty of off-season vent lines that will be taking place between now and week 1 against the Packers. If you'd like to get in on one of those episodes, shoot me an email. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com for the YouTube audience. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen right there. And if you're discovering this Vikings page for the first time, hit the subscribe button. This is Purple Daily. We just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. My name is Declan Goff. I'm the executive producer here at SKOR North for Purple Daily, and Mackie and Judd. I'm excited to talk to a couple Vikings fans here. Octavio and Vinny are going to talk some purple with me and talk some offseason expectations, some in-season expectations. Excited to talk with them. Of course, Vent Line and Purple Daily is always sponsored by Surly Brewing Company. If you're in the Twin Cities here, go check out Surly Brewing Company. It's a great patio. They got a great selection of beers, IPAs, pale ales, plenty of options at your disposal there. And of course, TCL. Enjoy more of what you love with TCL and TCL televisions. Thank you for anyone who is consuming Vikings Vent Line. It's one of our most watched shows during the Vikings NFL season. Mackie, Judd, and myself go live the moment the Vikings game ends on this YouTube channel. So if you'd like to get in on a future episode of this offseason edition where we just kind of talk some evergreen things, by all means, hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. We are a Viking show that broadcasts 7 days a week. Yeah, 365 days. 7 days a year. Even in the dwell of this offseason, there's still plenty to talk about. So hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports and Minnesota Vikings specifically entertainment. Pleasantries aside, let's get our guys in here. Let's get my guy Octavio. Let's get my guy Vinny. Octavio is feeling that heat down in LA area right now. And in fact, some loyal Purple Daily listeners might recognize him. Our main man was at the Chargers game a few years back, and maybe had dropped a few extra words he shouldn't have dropped, but that's okay. The beers were flowing. He was feeling himself. I have no problem with what you did there, Octavio, but I'm glad
they won.
Back, they won. You won. You were the star of the show that day. So I'm happy to have you back on Vikings Vent Line, dude.
I'm glad to be back. Thank you, guys.
How long have you been a Vikings fan, Octavio?
I remember 98 partially. My dad that year. So pretty much ever since I grown up. I remember watching the Lions game with my dad. It was Thanksgiving. Oh, no, it was around Thanksgiving when they had lost this year. And I looked at him. I was like, I blame you. He's like, why? He's like, because I'm into this because of you. And he's like, well, misery loves company. I'm like, well, you have a point.
You have no idea how many dads have introduced their sons to this, and then their sons always shout out their dads, or more like with chagrin, being like, yeah, it was my dad's fault. My dad made me a Vikings fan, and here I am still trying to deal with the Vikings. Vinny, how long have you been a Vikings fan, man?
Forever, man. Same kind of story. My dad got me into it. Just kind of grew up watching him, like especially playing the old days in the Met and the winter, and after the games, go meet with my friends in the neighborhood, and we'd play football, pretend like we're Ahmad Rashad or whatever. It's great times.
That's funny because like people my age, like I was born in 92, so I'm turning 30 at the end of the year. But like we always envisioned us being Randy Moss, like outside in the backyard, like pretending to be Randy Moss or Chris Carter. Now like this next generation is probably doing the same stuff with like Thielen and Jefferson. It's kind of funny how each generation's of Vikings fans like have so many great wide receivers and other players that they tried to mimic in the backyard. And you're in Arizona, you said, correct?
Oh yeah, I'm right here in the sauce pan.
Okay. I love every time I have Vikings Vent Line going on, it's like never a universal Minnesota location show. Like obviously I'm here in Minneapolis, but everyone here that comes on Vikings Vent Line is typically from all across the country, and it blows my mind. I would say South Carolina and Arizona are like the two places that I've had a ton of Vikings fans come on the show. And even I know both you said you've been to the stadium and whatnot. And anytime the Vikings are playing the Cardinals, that honestly seems like a home game for the Vikings. Like it's just so loud when the Vikings score. I've always like been in marvel of that when I watch it on TV.
Yep.
Yeah,
no,
definitely a ton of fans here.
They travel well. Every time I've seen them at SoFi, I've seen them at the Coliseum when they played the Rams when first year of Kirk Cousins. Same thing. It was like 50-50, man. They travel well. So it's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. I love that there's like Vikings fans all over the place. I think that part blew my mind a little bit. I've lived in Minneapolis and Minnesota for my whole life. So like once we started doing this show and we kind of expanded to podcasts and YouTube, I was just blown away how many like actual Vikings fans there are across the country. We even had people like from Hawaii and Europe a few weeks ago. So like there's Vikings fans kind of all over the place. I find it super fascinating.
Exactly.
Fellas, let's get into the show here. I sent over a little prep email. I'm curious on your hottest Vikings take. I asked this to the same group of guys last weekend on Vikings Vent Line. Now training camp's like 10 days away, and we're almost to the season, about like 7 weeks away. Octavio, I'll start with you. I want to know, what is your hottest Vikings take for the 2022 season?
And of course, people are going to assume this isn't a hot take, but I'll give you some facts real quick. So I think Justin Jefferson will lead the league in receiving yards. And I didn't know this. This is from Dustin Baker on Twitter. A Minnesota Viking receiver has not led the NFL in receiving yards during a single season. I looked it up, and it's true. Even 98, Moss was off. It was Antonio Freeman in Green Bay, 1,400 yards. Moss didn't get it. I'm like, wow. I thought Moss for sure had that. I'm like, wow. So I think that would be a good one. And I put down potentially catches, but I know it's going to be hard. That's a hard one to predict. I think in yards, I think he has a shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's come close a few times here. And you're right. There's been, we were just talking at the beginning of the show, right? We've had a ton of wide receivers that have come through the Vikings franchise, and none of them ever led the league in receiving yards, I should say. Like, that is a pretty mind-blowing stat. I like it. I think I think it's still a hot take, that from the standpoint that like Justin Jefferson hasn't done it before. A Vikings player has never done it before. And he has like this confident swagger. I saw him, I think, with an article this week that like he wants to be the best wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, the dude's 23, 24 years old. He's only been here a couple of years, but the guy wants to show that he's one of the best players and receivers in the NFL. I love it, man. I love Justin Jefferson leading the league in receiving yards. Vinny, how about you, man? What's your hottest Vikings take?
So I'm actually in collaboration here with my brother. I shot him the questions that you had sent me and Octavio, and just wanted to try to get his inputs as well. And so we agree on 2 of them of the 3. And so the first one that we think, as far as a hot take goes, is that we think they're going to be a top 3 offense this year. Regardless of Zim's attempts to try to handcuff the team and a kind of inexperienced offensive coordinator, we still managed to be the 12th ranked offense in the league, which is incredibly impressive. And I think that just goes to show that we have a lot of talent on this team, especially on the offensive side. Defense, we still have to determine. But I just look at what the job that Spielman does, and you can think what you do of him. But, man, if you go down that roster on that offense, it's pretty powerful and potent. So definitely looking at a top 3 offense this year.
I feel like we've been also like begging for that, like the last few years. Yes, like Zimmer's bread and butter was defense, and he kind of looked at offense, unfortunately, as a necessity. But when you break it down and you see all the players that's across the board, and I know the offensive line has its issues, like it's too good of an offense with the personnel for it not to be like a top 10 offense. And something that I've kind of looking forward to this season, because expectations, they could be a playoff team. I'm sure we might talk about it here later on in the show. But like my bar for a successful season this year is like, can this offense, to your point, Vinny, like be a top 3, top 5 offense for once, in points, a juggernaut offense that you're scared of. The Vikings have had like peaks and valleys with that, right? Like they had it in 98. They had it with Randy Moss and Dante to a degree. They had it with Brett Favre when he came here in 09. But it's never been like a consistently unbelievable, it's going to score a ton of points and you're scared of it offense. I think with Kevin O'Connell's addition, like that's the exact thing Vikings fans can like hang their hat on in 2022, right? Like they can finally say that their offense can carry them. We'll see if the offensive line can hold up, but even if it's like league average, and that's another thing Vikings fans have wanted, right? Just want a league average offensive line, and can that interior protect Kirk Cousins? I like that. What are your guys' thoughts? Octavio, I'll go back to you here quick, just on Kirk. It's the year 5 now with Kirk Cousins, just 1 playoff appearance. What are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins?
He's good. It's one of those things. So my dad doesn't like him. I can get by with him, but again, he's just, you're paying him top 5 money. That's the hard pill to swallow, because you can't fill like the right guard. If they weren't paying Kirk Cousins $35 million, maybe they can fill right guard, or how much more they're paying him now. So that's the frustrating part. I think he's been good, but also hasn't lived up to the expectation. Is he Case Keenum 2017 good? I mean, maybe he's been better than Case Keenum, but this Case Keenum has had more success in less time and less money. So if you really think about it.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating, because that's what the Vikings fans wanted to see. They want to see a franchise guy. They paid him to be a franchise guy, and he's definitely good. I mean, he puts up the numbers, but there's still like that little missing ingredient, or that missing extra punch that makes him an elite quarterback. Vinny, how about you, man? What are your thoughts on Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what he just said. And I guess, when I look at the statistics, I'm more of a data-driven kind of a person myself. So I think Phil had brought up one of the percentages. I think it was, if a quarterback is making roughly 23% of the salary cap, that you don't go to the Super Bowl. So, but I'm confused when it comes to Kirk. I really think that probably the effect of Zimmer on him and the conservative approach. Maybe he didn't. Maybe maybe Kirk's the actual guy that always says, I'm just here to do my job type deal, and I just work here. So hopefully that'll change with Kevin, and we'll see what rolls on.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for as a Vikings fan. If Kevin O'Connell can reach out and also like get this offense to where it's supposed to be and get Kirk to the next level, I think we'll all take that. And if everything starts clicking right away, who knows? Yeah, they could make a potential run. But I'm excited for Kevin O'Connell. Like regardless of how we feel about Kirk, right? The Zimmer era is now done. I liked Zimmer. I know it got stale and it was time to move on from him. But I'm excited for this Kevin O'Connell era, dude. Like there's just that optimistic feel that when you hire a new coach and a guy who's also just like super personable and not a complete old school football guy, I think it's really it really relates to a lot of Vikings fans who want to see the team be successful. I think it's like all you can ask for at this point, and I'm excited. We're like 7 weeks away, man. I can't wait for Vikings football.
I can't wait.
Yeah, heck yeah, man.
Boys, I'm curious on which player Vikings fans know that could regress this season. So that defense is there's still some players there that are still dang good, but they could be hitting the wall a little bit. So I'm curious, even on the offensive side of the ball, maybe. Octavio, I'll start with you. Is there a veteran player that's kind of been around a little bit? You kind of see his game coming on the other side of the hill. Which Vikings player do you think might regress in 2022?
I thought about this one the longest. I was going to put Kendricks, but last year he kind of had a down year. So I was like, I feel like that's an easy answer. I ended up putting down Thielen because I feel like the injuries have been catching up to him. He's getting a little older. I think he'll be fine. His production numbers might be all right, but because he's a touchdown machine in the red zone. But as far as age, injuries, maybe if Thielen does happen to go down, knock on wood, I pray he's all. I'm not praying for injury here, but it's just it's what he's shown to us. Maybe KJ Osborne steps up. Maybe Amir Smith-Marset. I know there's the kid out of Michigan State. I think it was that kid looks good. The receiver, can't remember his name right now, but. So, I mean, maybe if Thielen goes down, God forbid, but maybe a blessing in disguise. Maybe KJ steps up. Maybe one of the younger guys, I hope, But I don't know. I just feel like Thielen might be on that downhill skid. And I love Thielen. That's the worst part. I don't want to see him go down.
Yeah, he feels like a guy who's just kind of getting up there in age. To your point, still a red zone target that catches a ton of touchdowns. So even if he might not be putting up big gaudy numbers, he's still a guy who can get separation and can get you 6 points. I think Thielen was my pick too the other day when we were talking about this on Purple Deal with Mackie and Judd. That I just think his age might be catching up to him a little bit. I still think he can be a productive player. To your point, no one's wishing injuries on anyone here. Just it's the nature of the NFL. The dude has had an incredible story, but he also could be hitting a little bit of a wall here and starting to go into decline, or he's going to prove us all wrong, right? And play in 16 games, be the dude he's always been, and catching a ton of touchdowns. Vinny, how about you? Go ahead, Octavio.
I was going to say, if he's watching this and I'm inspiring him, go for it, man.
Yeah,
right.
You and family's watching this. You're welcome. Here's your motivation. Plaster it right on the wall.
Exactly.
Vinny, how about you, man? Which Vikings player do you think could regress in 2022?
I hate this question, Declan, because I don't want anybody to digress, if you will. My brother Kevin and I pretty much agree, though. When I was looking over your questions, and I said, "Oh, geez, it's probably Hitman." But then I started looking at the stats over the past few years, and boy, that guy's just stayed consistent.
Yep.
I haven't. He doesn't seem to let up on big hits. He's always where you need him to be. Maybe I don't know if Zim pulled him away from blitzing as much. Maybe I didn't see him blitz as much as I think I usually do anyway. But he's 33. Maybe this defense will inspire him to play even harder. I don't know. That's what I'm really hoping. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was a toss up for me, same as Octavio. I thought of Thielen and I thought of a Hitman, but since my brother and I both agree, yeah, I definitely think it's going to be Hitman.
Yeah, I feel like Harrison Smith, and also this is a position like safety where you can kind of not regress for a long time, but you can play that position for a while, right, and still be like pretty consistent. And even past cornerbacks like Charles Woodson moved into a safety role towards the end of his career and was pretty solid. Harrison, for me, he might have had a down year, you could say, from an analytical standpoint last year, but I look at him as kind of like Kevin O'Connell says, that illusion of complexity, right? Like that was that buzzword he used in his press conference. And I feel like he is that kind of guy on the defensive side of the ball, because you never know what he's going to do. Like, is he going to stay in coverage? He's going to come up on the line and potentially blitz you. I think Aaron Rodgers once even said, like, he's one of the toughest defenders he's ever had to play against, because you truly don't know his instincts and what he can do. And he can do just about everything there is on the football field. So he's a tough guy to read.
He's smart too.
Very smart. And it's one of those positions you have to be smart. If you're playing Aaron Rodgers, twice a year, and, at one point Matthew Stafford was in this division, he was a good quarterback too. You got to have good instincts to be a defensive back. And the cornerback room this year, just it's barren. Let's be honest. Like, it might not be effective. So if that pass rush is not getting after the quarterback into Neal and Zadarius Smith, guys like Harrison Smith, Lewis Cine, who's going to be obviously in his rookie season this year, they kind of got to cover for them a little bit to a degree. What are your guys' thoughts on Lewis Cine?
Hang in there, Harry.
Yeah, hang in, Harry. Seriously, man. What are your guys' thoughts on the Lewis Cine pick? Did you like the Lewis Cine pick? Octavia, I'll start with you.
I didn't watch a lot of Georgia ball coming out of this recently, but I have a friend who's a huge Georgia fan, and I asked him, I was like, how is this kid? He said, dude, he's just a heat-seeking missile. He always he has like a smell for the ball. He's right there. He's a great player, and I guess he had one of his buddies was around this team, and he said he was a great guy to be around, super humble, very quiet, but came to work. So I like the pick. If he's gonna come and exceed our expectations, then great. It's a 32nd pick. Everybody passed on him. The Bucks, who promised to take him, passed on him. So maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he'll play with some fire. We need it.
To be honest, he sounds a lot like Harrison Smith, right? Like a quiet guy who's super smart, hits real hard, heat-seeking missile. I love that term there. I think he's got a long, good career ahead of him. Vinny, what did you think, man? Did you like that Lewis Cine pick at the end of the first?
I did. I think a lot of us, definitely Judd, had the mindset, too many expectations. Maybe the expectations were too much. Like, we thought we were going to get rid of Kirk, right? We thought we were going to completely rebuild the team. There was so many different directions we were thinking. And then with the number 1 draft pick, that high, maybe we'd get somebody good. And then we went ahead and dropped back, right? And my brother lost it. And he said, I can't say the explicatives here, but it was probably something similar along the lines of Octavio has mentioned. But I loved it, to be honest with you. I'm not big on the trade, obviously, but the first thing I did was go to YouTube and watch his highlights, and that guy just appeared out of nowhere, and it was just like laying the wood on everybody. It's just incredible. I really hope that's the way it translates to the NFL.
Yeah, I didn't love the move back necessarily, and to your brother's point, like, that NFL draft takes forever, right? So like when you're picking 12th, like, you got to wait at least 2 hours probably to get to like that 12th, 13th pick. Now you're telling me I got to watch 2 more hours of this before I even know who the Vikings are going to pick, and judging by their trading back, are they going to do it again, for God's sakes, and not walk away with anyone in the first round? It's kind of frustrating.
6-pack. 2 hours is another 6-pack.
Yeah. We were live at Surly Brewing Company, and it was unfortunate. We were just talking about the weather before we turned the mics on here. It was, even for Minnesota, for like late April, early May, it was unseasonably cold, like colder than it should be even for late April, early May, and we were freezing our butts off. So from a personal standpoint, from a professional standpoint, I was kind of pissed off the trade, because I was like, I am freezing my arse off out here. Can we just make this pick and we talk about it a little bit more? No, they made us sit out there for 5 hours. So thank you, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, for our first ever like live draft experience. It was a blast, don't get me wrong, but of course it was just bad weather gods there.
Would you guys have stayed out there? Let's say we picked when we were supposed to. Would you guys have still stayed out there for the rest of that first round?
I think we probably would have gone as long as we could. Yeah, we probably would have been out there regardless.
Yeah, it looks pretty miserable, man.
Yeah, it was cold, dude. We had heaters next to us that weren't even doing that good. The wind almost blew our set down. It was so windy out there. The weather gods were not in love with the Vikings selections and methods, I should say, that day. It was a little bit brutal.
I was gonna say, I kind of hope we hear back. I hope one day we hear the story of what was the trade talks on Detroit. I really hope. Yeah. I'm kind of curious how they couldn't get a first round out of that. That's a lot of that's a big jump. That's 20 spots. Like I at least an early second round, not even first, not even next year's first. Nothing. Like, man, I'm like, that's kind of surprising. So I hope we hear that one day.
And in your division too, right? Like, that was just a little bit, and then they did it again with the Packers like 2 days, a day later, essentially. So. You just hope that doesn't come back to bite you. I don't think it will. And if they're the right players, that's all that matters. But it wasn't, and you're right. I do kind of want more information if it ever comes out a few years. What was the exact thought processes there?
Exactly.
Fellas, expectations for the Vikings this year. We had a new coach. Offense should be good. But just kind of broadly, Octavio, I'll go with you here. What are your expectations for the Purple in 2022?
It's so hard not to drink the purple Kool-Aid without trying to be like they're gonna win the Super Bowl. I don't. This one I thought about the second most. I'm hoping for at least 12 wins. You know, top 5 offense. I just hope that we take strides in just showing like, hey, we're gonna be better. Even if let's say this year they do all right, but they show flashes of, hey, this is what it could be. Because I expect some growing pains. It's the new offense, it's a new regime, but just looking at this offseason, I haven't seen the team hang out as much as it did. I just watched that golf, that Thielen, Hitman, Kirk, and Patrick Peterson, and I've never seen them like hang out as much as they have been this offseason. So I'm kind of being hopeful that this is going to be a good season. I think 11-6 sounds realistic without drinking too much purple Kool-Aid, but I don't know. It's hard to say.
Vinny, how about you, man? What are your expectations for the Vikes this year?
This is where my brother Kevin and I differ a little bit. He wanted me to say that he was expecting us to win the division and go deep into the playoffs. I'm expecting the defense to be better, man. I don't get it. That was Zim's repertoire, supposed to be the big guy on the defense, and it just didn't happen. And just watching it degrade like it did was just really horrible experience. I don't know how that we can get any worse. What did we finish, like 30th, I believe? Well, with that in mind, I would love to see obviously the run defense be better. I'm really excited to see what Donatello is going to bring to this hybrid. I'm really expecting, DJ Wampum. He had, and that was intentional, by the way. He had 8 sacks last year, and the majority of them came when Hunter was still on the field. Hunter will be there now, and we're obviously talking about Zadarius Smith. He's another linebacker in the equation, so I'm hoping Wampum gets up there in sacks too. So I really, really expect the defense to be much improved, and I expect them to be at least middle of the pack, if not better.
You know, it's a topic on that defense that I feel like we're just not talking about, just because obviously all the lures on the offensive side of the ball. You know, what kind of season will Kirk have? You know, how quickly can KOC turn around the offense? But, you know, the defense stunk the last 2 seasons, and Zimmer was a defensive coach, but also, you know, they faced injuries for sure. Danielle Hunter, you only get 6 games out of him over 2 years. Like, yeah, your defensive line and your defense in general is going to suffer a little bit. But I think just by the law of averages, to your point, Vinny, like, it should be a lot better. It just should be, it should improve. Yes, we talked about the cornerback room being, you know, a little sketchy, but at the same time, I feel like the defensive line and Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter, like if those 2 dudes are consistently getting after the quarterback, then the defense should be just naturally a lot better. Now, I also feel like there's pressure, pun intended, on that defensive line to get after the quarterback, because if they don't, like, teams could have all day passing on the Vikings, and that could be a little bit brutal. But I'm with you. Like, the defense should be better. And if it's league average, like, take that all day. Like, it's not going to go from 30th to top 10 overnight just like that, most likely. But can it be a competent defense?
And even if the run defense doesn't improve that much, I'm really counting on the offense to, you know, basically outscore the other team. And then it's just all pass rush in the rest of the game. At least, hopefully, by the second half, we've got such a lead that the other team is desperate to catch up, and it's all passing, and then we're just rushing the crap out of them.
And in today's NFL, like, that's the formula. Like, it's no longer just playing the shutdown defense. Like, has it worked before with the Seahawks and like the Ravens defense back in 20 years ago? Yes, it's worked before, but just the way the NFL has translated here, it's an offensive league, and you need your offense. I know this is going to be a crazy idea. They got to outscore the other team. The defense is going to put the clamps down. So that's what the Vikings got to do. And hopefully I think that defense will improve drastically too. Fellas, before we wrap, anyone you want to shout out or any last take you want to give? Tavio, I'll go with you here. No F-bombs if you can, but at the same time, anyone you want to shout out or any last take you want to give before we wrap up?
I just hope for a good season, and that's really my take. I just, we're all on the same boat. I'm just hoping for a good season. KOC seems like a great coach. Like, man, that interview you guys had with him, that was awesome. That was really cool. I hope you guys can pull that off more in the future. That was really cool that he came on. He seems, like you said, such a personable guy. It seems like he has such an open door policy. I'm all for that, 100%. I'm really drinking that KOC Kool-Aid, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was awesome, dude. He was everything we thought he was going to be, and he just seems like a legit guy. Mike Zimmer was a surly classic, smashing in the mouth football coach, but Kevin O'Connell seems like a guy like you can have beers with. Like he seems like a guy you'd find at the bar, right? And you could have a drink with him, and he would be able to talk shop or talk whatever with. And he was awesome. If you have not watched that video, if anyone's consuming this podcast or this video, go check it out. It was about 25 minutes of football gold with Kevin O'Connell. Vinny, how about you, man? Any last take or anyone you want to shout out here?
I want to shout out to actually you and Phil and Judd. Man, you guys do an awesome job. Thank you so much for bringing us a different flavor, non-Kool-Aid. I love it. I can't get enough of it. But I also want to definitely thank my wife for putting up with the roller coaster weekends that I go through, and my brother, who's always hanging with me, and we're both on that same roller coaster, man. And it's always a blast. It's depressing. It's awesome. It's, oh my God, what's next?
Right. Yeah, it's I love the family affair with it too. That's what we were just talking about at the beginning of the show. Like it's a family affair, whether it's your dad or your brother, and then you got your wife involved, right? You got your significant others involved who are now like trapped into your emotions of Sundays and trying to deal with the Vikings. And if we just see a Super Bowl, that's all we're asking for. We want to see a Super Bowl before we die. That's the mission statement of the show.
Just one. That's all I care about. We can get one, bro. I could die tomorrow and we get one. I'll be happy. I don't want them to be my Bears anymore, man. They let us down every time.
I know, man. Hopefully it's coming soon. That's all we could ask for here, and especially Minnesota sports, man. If you got, I'm obviously enthralled with all 4 teams, and it's been a rough go. I'm 30 years old, never seen in one men's championship, so that's all I can ask for, dude. I just want to see it. Just one, please. So I can.
Yeah,
I want.
You guys have it worse. I'm a Celtics fan, so
at least on the doorstep, though. You were there.
Yeah, they were there. They were there. It is what it is. So they're a young team. We'll figure it out.
Octavio, Vinny, appreciate you guys coming on Vikings Vent Line, fellas. Come on during the season by all means. We'll be ready to rock. Obviously in week 1, Vikings Packers that's a 3:30 kickoff. So it'll be an evening vent line here in the Central Time hours, but we're excited for that. If anyone's listening or watching, again, if you want to come on a future edition of Vikings Vent Line, hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. We just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. Purple Daily. We'll be back tomorrow.